Alright, so there's just under a week left on Neuvillette's rerun, and though I know most of us are probably saving for Arlecchino, myself included, which is very fair, that's father. If you have the Primogems to spare, I'd like to convince you why Neuvillette is a must-have, not just because he, as one of the best DPSs in the game currently, is a vital asset on your team, but because he may just be the best written character in Genshin Impact. Call me Kairos, and rather than present any theories today, I'd instead like to provide more of an exposé on Neuvillette's character and all his intricacies. If you haven't played the Fontaine Archon quest, even though I presume that most have, there will be spoilers from here on out, so you've been warned. As the Hydro Dragon's sovereign, Neuvillette is far more removed from humanity than his current Archon counterparts. The dragons of Teyvat, as its original rulers, held dominion over Teyvat long before the primordial one, the first descender. Naturally, he does not feel as though he exists in complete harmony with the ever-changing world around him. He states that, for him, Fontaine has never felt as a home, yet he connects with those around him, the Melusines especially, who, born of the remains of Elenas, exist in sanctity with the waters of Fontaine. Because of their nature, the Melusines are creatures who Neuvillette desires to protect and nurture, whereas he finds himself somewhat aloof when it comes to personal human relations. Well, from his point of view. On the matter of Neuvillette's relations, despite the fact that he believes he cannot understand humanity, Neuvillette is more human than most who superficially bind themselves to the jurisdiction of the Archon. The Archon who, prior to unveiling her truth beneath a velvet curtain, struts and frets before her people, keeping their company and acting in a drama wherein she flaunts her higher-than-thou mentality as a facade by which to hide her fear and insecurity. Unlike Farina, Neuvillette shields his heart behind an exterior of decently opaque stone, brittle enough to shatter under pressure, yet beautiful enough in its fragility to distract the audience from heartbreak and disillusion. Hydro Dragon, don't cry, will always be more than just a childhood wishing away of the rain. It is a calming affirmation that the one who feels every emotion contained within the waters carries the angers, sorrows, burdens, hopes, and dreams of every individual in Fontaine. With a weight as heavy as this, no wonder the sky itself must cry. Still, too, there is the fact that, as the Hydro Sovereign, Neuvillette could be distant and emboldened with a superior attitude, but instead he thinks about his friends regardless of any moment in time. He returns from Neuvillette not just with any gifts, but with handmade gifts, bringing a hand-carved legal codex for Geisley, a memento from a joke kept between himself, Geisley, and Clorinde, as well as a ladle for the traveler. He says he feels estranged from Fontaine, but the people he surrounds himself with affirm that he is welcomed and loved, and he, in adapting to humanity, does all he can to return simple sentiments to them. Neuvillette remembers every detail, preserves them, so he can best express his love to those he treasures. I think my favorite thing about Neuvillette's story quest, and his character in general, especially regarding his people, is that he doesn't forget or brush things off and move on. So many, if not all, story quests in Genshin focus on amending something or aspects of someone's life and relationships, but not all of them bear the same impact, and this has to do with emotional depth. This is why A's second story quest was such a success, and should have been the Archon quest in my opinion. A had been wrestling with the cataclysm and the loss of Makoto for 500 years, and we aren't there to help her simply move on. We're there to help her understand and face what she has hidden herself from. We understand the gravity of time. We see it both erase and create, heal and destroy. The same goes for Neuvillette. As the traveler said, literally, he is an amalgamation of all his past trials and verdicts, and that is what makes him who he is now. The cutscene we get at the finale of his story quest isn't meant to showcase his woes or him placing all his successes and upsets in the past. It shows us who he is, his humanity. What I love is that his quest doesn't end with Fontaine feeling like home, to drag the dragon out of water example. Instead, it ends with acceptance, a settling of past distresses which, despite Neuvillette's grief, has instilled in him immeasurable kindness. There's a scene between Neuvillette and Neuvillette in the first acts of the Fontaine Archon quest where Neuvillette comments upon Neuvillette's nature. She understands him. She says,
"So you're actually one of those types that's cold on the outside, but pretty thoughtful on the inside, huh? That reminds me of Silver, one of my guys."
I don't mean to pull a tearjerker at the conclusion of this video, but Neuvillette here admits that emotional expression is not one of his fortes. I'd argue that it is, though, because even though it's so often said that it loses its meaning, actions speak louder than words. Standing vigil at Callus's grave, staying silent after ruling Chrysley's parricide, unable to leave the podium for a time, even the Hydro Archon urged him to settle his tears. Yet he still cried even upon regaining the height of his power. Not for nostalgia, not for hope, but for the one who led him to the land, and the people of Fontaine who, over time, have come to view him as unanimous with the nation itself. I could go on, but otherwise we'd be here for hours. If we can learn anything from Neuvillette to adopt and pay forward, well, I'd just be repeating everything I said. As always, thank you so much for listening, and you can call me Kairos.